Hi there, Titans. My name is Paige, and today we are going to be doing a special series on best practices using strips and columns. Now, this best practices series will be a little different than the typical how-to tutorials, but instead we will be covering broad question-based discussions that will improve the functionality and build out of your web projects. These videos will not necessarily help you to learn how to implement different elements and functions, but will instead be very beneficial to help you understand the concepts of the web tools themselves. So we're starting with strips and columns because this is the first step to making sure that you have the right layout for your web interfaces, and strips and columns will determine the accessibility and potential of your finished products. So in this video, we'll be covering what are strips and columns, why are they important, how can we use repeated strips and repeated columns in our projects, when should we be using a header and when should we be creating our own headers using strips, and when should we be saving strips to my strips and how do we use them again. So without further ado, let's get started with our first question. So what are strips and columns? Strips and columns are the canvas for which your elements can live within your web project. How do you add a strip or column? Well, you can add a strip either by clicking on a current strip, and then you can click on the plus sign to add one above or below the strip that you have selected. You can also add strips by going to the plus sign, going to strip, and then you can drag and drop in a blank strip, or you can drag and drop in a strip template that we have created for you and build off of those. You can also choose between lots of other templates that we have, or you can drop in a saved strip that you have saved to my strips. To add columns, you'll click on the strip that you want the column to be within, you'll right click, and then you can go to add column and you can choose before or after. So if I want to choose add a column after this column, then I would go to after, and then it dropped in another column. So columns only exist within strips, and there's always going to be a column within your strip. So I can show you this way. If you show layer list, you can see that here is our strip, and you can see the column that is within the strip. And then there is one that has three. These are the three columns that I have added to this strip. Now, if you wanted to drag and drop some elements into your strips, you can do so. They have to be within a specific column or strip, and then it does not seem like you are able to add or move the elements to different strips, but you can. You just have to hold down Shift, and then you have the ability to move the elements between different columns or different strips, like so. So by holding down Shift, you're able to move your elements between different strips or columns. All right, so that concludes what strips and columns are. Next is, why are strips important? So strips and columns are important for three major reasons amongst many others. So for one, your strips will help the responsive AI make a more accurate prediction for where your elements should be whenever your users are switching between device types. They will also make sure that your web projects are more responsive to whenever you're showing or hiding elements based on certain conditions, and it can ensure that elements are not covered up by other elements that may have been enlarged by certain Salesforce data whenever it was gotten out of Salesforce. So let me show you a project and explain these three reasons a little bit more in detail for you. Let's just delete this here. I do not need that. Uh-oh. I want to delete this one. Okay, so this is just a simple template that Titan has to work off of. If you ever needed to use one of our templates to build your websites, you definitely can. But let me just show you what this looks like once we go into a mobile device. So we already have responsive AI turned on. So without configuring these different device types, your users will already be able to see your website if they were to log on via a phone. And the key is that there is a responsive AI tool to help configure that to be fitted for a smaller screen. And the way that it does that is it reads the elements left to right, and it just kind of configures what order it believes things should be on based on the placement that they were in the original desktop version. And by adding in the strips, it has a more precise way of configuring this because it's going to go based off the strip and not based on single elements. So if you were not to have strips here, then there is more margin for error for how that will configure it, because the elements, there's many more of them, they're smaller, they're in different spaces throughout your website. So I would strongly recommend using strips, especially whenever your users are viewing your sites from mobile devices. So you can see in this example, we have like the logo and I don't know, like catchphrase, we have the brands that they promote, contact us form. Everything looks really nice automatically. Whereas if we did not have the strips in line, there would definitely be more errors that you'd see on this responsive AI tool. All right, so the other reason why it's really important to, hold on, that's not what I wanted it to do. The other thing is that whenever you're showing or hiding certain elements, so say if this was a portal and if the person logging in was a partner rather than a client or a customer or something, maybe they don't need to see this contact us form because they're partners, they already have all of our information there in direct communication with us. So we want to hide this contact us form for our partners. If we did not have strips broken down, then we would do this by, if it was a partner, then we'd hide this element, all of these elements here, possibly even like the bike, everything, but we'd still have this really big blank space right here, and it would not look very clean in the end product. So instead, we put this contact us form, it's its own strip, and whenever the end user is a partner, then we will hide this entire strip rather than the individual elements. And down here, everything will skinch up, and the entire strip will it will disappear, and everything else will move up in its place. And that will work the same for columns too. It will shrink and conform itself to fit into the spaces, and that looks really, really pretty on the end user's perspective whenever certain things are hidden or removed from their experience. And then the last big reason for why strips are important is for those large gets that you get out of Salesforce. So say that these products down here, imagine that maybe there's like 1,000 of them or 100 of them, and maybe there's some more information or a form here. And if we did not put it in a strip, then these products and these icons here could cover up any element that was like below it. So say we put in a field somewhere here. If we did not put it in its own strip, then these elements, whenever they're expanded from Salesforce, could cover up any fields within its strip. So by separating the expansive elements into their own strip, then it will never cover up other elements in your website. So those are the 3 very big reasons why strips are important. So how can repeated strips and repeated columns be used in our projects? Repeated strips, repeated columns, they're a great way to add either unlimited records to Salesforce or getting an unknown number of records or data out of Salesforce. So let's show you a few different examples of this working. I'm going to start with this other one and page 5. Okay, so let's preview page 5. In this example, our end users can create a contact. So let's do page sign, and then they can add another one. And they can remove a contact, or they can add unlimited amount of contacts and then save this to Salesforce. So this is a great way for whenever maybe you have an account and you're adding a lot of different contacts or any other record to Salesforce, and you don't know how many your users will have, and so you want to give them the ability to add as many as you want. So that is a great way to use repeated strips, and you can watch a video on how to do that. And then if you want to use repeated columns, or if you want to be able to get an unlimited amount of records out of Salesforce, then you can also do this. So this is a get to get the contact names and the contact titles, and I'm just pulling in any contacts that do have a title. And I put this in a repeated column, so it looks like this whenever we preview it. So you can see that the columns are filled for as many columns as I had in my web project, which was just 2, and then it goes down to the next row whenever those 2 are filled. So this is a repeated column, and it's getting an unlimited number of records out of Salesforce, or I guess an unknown amount of records out of Salesforce. So if you ever are wanting to load a lot of different data or records from Salesforce, and it could be 1 or it could be 100, then repeated columns or repeated strips are another great way to get information out of Salesforce. And that is how you would use those repeated strips and columns. And you can watch videos on how to set this up. It's actually very simple, very straightforward. So I recommend you try this out in your web projects. So let's move on to when should we use a header and when should we use a strip as a header. Adding headers and footers to your web projects is a very easy thing to do. You can just go to Pages, go to Manage Menus, and then under Header, you can include a header. Same with a footer. Include a footer. And then you can click Save. And so this header is a way for your users to navigate between different pages in your web project. And it's also its own strip. So it's not within a strip, it's actually its own strip. And you can see that on the layer list, that the header is its own strip. It's not within other strips. So you would use this header that's standard to the Titan Web platform if you are okay with this header being on every single page in your web project. If there's ever a reason that you don't want this header to show on a certain page, then you may want to think about just customizing your own strip and using this as a header. You can drop in different buttons, elements, pictures, videos to make it your own header, or customize the strip to your own website and platform for your customers. I did want to show you how to drop in some fill. So under fill, this is a column, let me go to my strip, and then I'm going to go to fill. And so you can change the different color if you want, and also decide if it's going to be spread mode or not spread mode. And then you can also use an image if you want. So here's my cake image, and you can see it's going across the whole thing. You can also have it not repeat, or you can have it cover the entire span. Again, you can choose whether it's spread mode or not spread mode. And so this could be a really cool way to customize like your own header, have your logo or a certain tool or image that you have for your company, and have that as part of the your homepage or web environment. So that is a really cool thing, and it's really great to be able to customize each and every one of your strips and create a very, very good looking web interface for your users this way. So again, in review, you'll just use a header whenever you're okay with the capabilities and design that this header gives you. So there are lots of different design options. You can add in your own logos, etc. Or if you do not want this header to be on every single page, then I would recommend customizing the strip, saving it to My Strips, and then applying it to every page or every project that you want this strip to be included on. And so that actually brings us to our last final question. When should we be saving strips to My Strips, and how do we use them again? Let's jump into that. So I will be referring to our bike website again for this final question on how do we save to my strips and when should we be saving strips to my strips. You are able to, if you have a strip that you've created and you want to apply that to the rest of your pages on your website, or if you want to apply it to multiple different projects, then you're able to click on the strip, go to settings, and then this is where you can save to my strips. So I'll call this one bike strip, save. And then whenever you want to apply this strip to another project or page in your project, then you'll just go to that project. So let's go back to our strips and columns. And let's say we want to drop in a strip here. So I'll go to my strips, go to strips, and then instead of, it's probably going to land on popular when you click on strips, but you can scroll down all the way to the bottom, click on my strips, and this is where you can drag and drop the customized strip that you've created. And this is a great way to apply the progress that you've made on other projects and apply it to new projects, new pages, and streamline that build-out process for your websites. So I hope that this video was helpful for you in understanding the best practices when using strips and columns. Again, strips and columns are very important for your web projects and the success of your build outs. They're very important for responsive AI, for when you're showing or hiding elements, and whenever you have expansive large data coming out of Salesforce. So I hope that you enjoyed this first best practices video in this series. We will be doing many other topics in the coming weeks regarding the Titan Web platform. And if there are any remaining questions that you have regarding columns or strips, then please just drop a comment in this video and I'd be happy to address any remaining questions for you. All right, so talk soon, and I'm looking forward to our next best practices video together.